You're listening to the Flow Theory Podcast.
Talk to me about being a grad assistant, Marcus. I know grad assistants, I mean, the hours those guys have to work, it's pretty insane because you have all that schoolwork that you have to do. And not only that, you got all that schoolwork you have to do. Not only that, all the different coaching duties you have to do. And then the fact that you're getting paid literally nothing. I mean, you're probably getting like, I don't know, like $400 a week, if that, man. Like the GAs, like I was around them at Ohio. Like
we definitely weren't getting $400 a week. It was brutal. You know, a typical day, you know, I'm leaving the house at 5 a.m. And I'm getting home in between 10 and 11 at night, you know, and that's at least 3 to 4 days out of the week. You know, we're breaking down the practice film. We're preparing for the next game. It was a lot, you know, especially taking a few years off from school, jumping back in and going back to school and taking that amount of school. It was a lot to deal with the amount of hours that you're asked to do on the football field. But, you know, it definitely made me fall in love with coaching football. And it kind of gave me a vision on what I wanted to do and how I wanted to be able to teach kids a lot of what I know and teach them through experiences I've had throughout the years and being able to give back this recycled knowledge in a positive way. And it definitely inspired me to want to do that for the rest of my life.
Yeah, talk to me about your linebacker school a little bit, Marcus. So you're not coaching at any college right now. You got your own linebacker school, and then you also have like the CBD and then a number of other businesses that you're working with.
Yeah, well, you got to stay active, you know. And once I was done with football, I had to ask myself, like everybody has to ask themselves at some point in their life, what do I like to do? What do I want to do? What will make me happy? And I definitely wanted to coach college football at one point in my life, and I still will at another point. But coaching college football is not the greatest decision to make if you want to start a family and get some kind of continuity. You know, I know a lot of times in the coaching profession, you're asked to move all over the country. And I didn't want to do that just yet to get my family going. And so I wanted to think of a way that I can bring a college coaching mentality and personalize it for individuals who, you know, want to get to college or even just want to get on the field, you know, and being able to, you know, one thing I learned when I stopped coaching at SMU and I moved back home to Sacramento, I did take a defensive coordinator varsity job at Pleasant Grove High School. And one thing I learned right off the top was I didn't have enough time with my athletes. And, you know, you have to focus on so many guys that like, man, I can't get the linebackers to play how I'd really want them to play because we don't have enough individual time. There's not enough time in practice to do what we're doing. And so, or do what we want to do. And so, that kind of gave me the idea of, you know, being that liaison for the coach that doesn't have enough time. How these kids can invest when they leave you, you know, in learning how to watch film, learning what they're doing wrong, you know, learning how to watch themselves, learning how to prepare for an opponent, you know, all these different things that I started going over with these kids. And I realized they all need it, you know, and film is one thing that really got me, I think is the difference maker that made me progress when I got to college. And so it's one thing that I want to instill in these younger athletes and let them know, like, if you can get the sooner you get this down, the better off you'll be and the better you'll look, you know, because all the schools have access to Huddle now. And so whatever you put on film, that's your resume. And so the earlier you can learn a lot of these fundamentals, the better, because once they look at your film, whatever you've done already, it speaks for itself.
Yeah, I agree, Marcus. Talk to me about the CBD business that you're involved in. I know I ordered some for my parents because, my mom and dad use that kind of stuff for some of their aches and pains. I'm really fascinated to hear more about just the CBD business in general and just how it was able to bypass like a lot of regulations and everything. And just interested to hear like how you got involved in CBD, because it really is a fascinating product to me. Like,
it's super fascinating. And, I thought I had knowledge about it until I started researching it and realized I knew nothing. It's pretty crazy, but how I got involved was my grandma was sick. And so with my grandma being sick, having cancer, she was diagnosed a lot of pills and different pain medicines and whatnot from the doctor that she hated taking, right? And so she's looking for alternative, different ways. And then she asked me to start trying to find different ways and things she can take. And I ran across CBD. Now, I had taken CBD a few times before, but I didn't really feel anything. I didn't know what it was supposed to do. I was familiar with THC. So I'm like, what is CBD? I don't feel anything. What is it doing? And so upon, my research, I found out that we all have an endocannabinoid system, right? Now, once I learned that and what it is and what it does, I realized that we all need CBD. We just don't really know it yet. And once I learned that, I had to become a part of the business in some way, shape, or form, because pretty soon, once people do find out how important it is, you're already seeing it pop up everywhere, but everybody's going to want a piece of the pie because literally we all need it. And I know a lot of people like yourself, their parents take it and their parents are starting to use it.
yeah.
But people of all ages, I actually give it to my kids. And that's how much I believe in it and what it does. But it basically, it helps with your immune systems and your cells and your motor activity, your coordination, pain perception, short-term memory, thinking, all of these different things. Your body has receptors, CB1 and CB2, different receptors that, are connected to your gut and your immune system and your liver and your kidneys and all of these things. And CBD is like the key that unlocks a lot of your systems in your body to be able to flow together. And so, CBD, I tell people it's almost like giving your body a deep breath. It's like your body kind of resetting itself and it helps you in whatever way you're lacking, right? So your parents might have aches and pains. Some of my other friends that take it, they might have trouble sleeping. And so it kind of fills in the blanks on wherever you need it. And so, once I got turned on by it, I was kind of like, I need to get a piece of the pie some way, some shape. And, I've been changing lives with it and I'm super excited about it. And it's definitely growing business. And, I haven't had a disappointed customer yet. And so that's definitely exciting. And I think as more and more people find out about it, more and more people will be taking it.
Yeah, it's definitely a fascinating product, Marcus. Talk to me about CBD beverages. I never even knew there were CBD beverages until, Joe Rogan, he sells a number of different things off of his podcast, but he has the CBD infused beverages in his fridge at his podcast. Talk to me about CBD beverages and what your thoughts are on those. Cause quite honestly, I'm kind of curious, dude. Like I might try a couple just to see what it tastes like. I don't know if you get like a contact buzz from it or what, but.
No, well, that's the thing, and that's the difference. You don't get a buzz from CBD, right? And so the difference between THC and CBD is the psychoactive portion of it, right? There is healing properties in THC, but not as many as CBD, right? And so I think, all CBD, it works the same, although a lot of CBDs are oil-based. CBD oil. One thing about CBD oil is that our bodies are not oil based. And so there's only so much oil that your body can absorb. Right. And so I don't know much about Joe Rogan's CBD beverages per se, but like the CBD that I'm familiar with or my product that I sell, it's the only CBD fluid that is not an oil on the market. And so you can put it in any beverage, right? Any cold beverage, and it'll blend right in. The reason why you don't put it in a hot beverage is because you cook out a lot of the enzyme or the good parts of the medicine, just like you would cooking healthy foods. You cook out the enzymes. So heating it up sometimes could ruin it. But the CBD I had can go into any beverage and you won't even taste it.
Oh, that's really interesting, Marcus, because I've seen I wanted to try these CBD beverages just to see what they tasted like, because I'm just curious.
And here's the thing, you cannot OD on CBD, right? And so a lot of times people get confused because they just don't know. And they're like, oh, well, should I do the beverage? Should I do this? If you have one beverage, it'll probably make you, sleep good that night, or it might, depending on what you're lacking, you definitely might feel it in some way. But I think CBD is best when taking it consistently, and you haven't like a daily routine, because after about a week, then you really start to feel its full effect. And then you'll feel the full difference when you don't take it and understand how much better it was improving your life.
I'm curious, Marcus, talk to me about like the start of CBD, because I really felt like it just kind of came out of nowhere. Like all of a sudden CBD just magically appeared on the shelves, dude. I was how did this bypass all the regulations?
You're right, man. Well, I think what it is, people are really starting to find out that holistic healing is really the way to go. Right. And the ancient Chinese, the medicines that have been around for thousands of years are really better for our body, right? I feel like God kind of put it all out here for us. And then we went ahead and decided we needed harder drugs and we needed all this man-made stuff that all have side effects. And I think, it's only been about 25 years. I think sometime in the 90s is when they found out that our bodies all have an endocannabinoid system. So it's fairly new research, right, that we're learning about. But I think at the time, they couldn't come out and tell everybody that weed and there's properties in weed that are actually good for your body, because they had just, finished the war on drugs. And so if we're doing a war on drugs and we're promoting Just Say No, how do we strategically come out and say, well, you know what, there's actually some drugs that we've put people away for a lot of years in jail and in prison, and some of these drugs are actually good for you. And so I think it took 20, 30 years to come out because they didn't know how to explain it or how to, explain that these drugs are actually beneficial. I think it was in the early 1900s, 1920s or so, when Rockefeller and different guys had got behind the government and got behind big pharma, and they pushed out all the holistic doctors and all the holistic healings and all of the natural healings, and wanted to prescribe you whatever they were prescribing to make more money and suppress these issues that you have. So you have to keep coming back and getting more medicine.
Right.
And a lot of times some people don't like CBD because it's not FDA approved. But, a lot of the stuff that's FDA approved are killing people. And the thing is, they're still doing research. They're still doing research on CBD, and they're finding out more positives about it. But to this day, they haven't found any bad side effects. So there's no side effects with CBD. You can't overdose. I can drink my whole, tincture bottle, and my body is just going to waste out what's not used. And you can't say that for most FDA approved drugs.
Yeah,
you know,
you're right.
you drink
Marcus.
the whole bottle and you might not be making it to tomorrow, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think the reason why, you know, the first lady who was able to, I think her daughter, you know, they were able to treat her, what did she have? Seizures. I think they were able to treat her seizures and different things of that nature. I think after that, it kind of hit the floodgates, and you know, and they more and more people start doing research, and more companies start popping up here and there and everywhere, and it just took off, you know, and I think when people found out that they're not getting high and it's actually helping people, then it's kind of like it's a win-win, you know, and so I enjoy it. It helps me out. It keeps my anxiety down. It helps me with my aches and pains. It helps me sleep. And I can definitely tell when I'm not taking it. I'm waking up in the middle of the night and different things of that nature. So, you know, I enjoy it. And like I said, our bodies are wanting CBD. It's just the amount of, like, if we're going to give it to it. And there's different foods as well, like dark chocolate and blueberries and other superfoods that have CBD in them.
I never knew that.
We didn't even realize it. The best way to get CBD though is just by natural, you know, CBD, which stems from the hemp plant.
Right. You know, an interesting thing, Marcus, you know, talking about all the aches and pains for guys in the NFL, you know, like there's a lot of guys like Calvin Johnson admitted to playing while taking Vicodin, you know, and I think that more and more players in the NFL, you know, are going to come out and say they were smoking weed before every game. You know, Percy Harvin said that because he was able to help his anxiety. You know, Colt Brennan came on my podcast. He said that he smoked before every game. You know, there's got to be more players. Did you know a lot of players that smoke before games?
I did know a lot of players that smoke before game. You know, I didn't know who was smoking before games, to be honest with you, because that wasn't what I was doing. Because I think it can help some guys. But at the same time, I think it can hurt as well. You know, I know from my experience with weed, if I was smoking before games, I would definitely have been a worse player. I think, you know, and I think weed affects certain people differently, but at the same time, even the guys that are smoking weed before every game, I think if they had something like CBD that, you know, their body was really wanting, right? And they got it through weed because that was all we knew, right? That was all they knew. I think if they were able to get some of those attributes from the plant, which come in the CBD form, without getting high, I think it would have benefited them even more. Because when you're smoking like that, it definitely does something to your lungs. You know, you're not in as good a shape. And I think that's a misconception that even though a lot of people are trying to make it to where they're not doing the testing and whatnot, you know, weed does not make you a better athlete. It can definitely help with some anxiety and some different things. But I think weed definitely affects you negatively as an athlete.
Yeah.
I think guys like Percy Harvin, who are world-class athletes, and, you know, Cole Brennan, who the gunslinger he is, you know, it might put them in a calm mood and they can still do what they need to do. But at the same time, maybe they would have played longer without weed. You know, maybe they, you know, that extra little advantage they needed to stick around more or whatever the case it was. But I don't think weed helps you as an athlete at all.
Yeah, I think it's different for everyone. I think Colt Brennan described it pretty well when he came to my podcast. He said how it's kind of a fine line for a lot of guys. You know, everyone's different and everyone kind of knows what works for them. But I think it worked for Percy. It worked for Colt. But not necessarily going to work for everyone, like you said. And I think it is interesting how you're talking about CBD. Does Ricky Williams have any sort of CBD business? And I know he's big.
I wouldn't doubt it at all. I don't know what he's doing, but I know that a lot of guys with farm. I know he lived up Northern California for a while, close to me. In Grass Valley, I believe he was at.
Yeah, he was. He was. That's right.
I think a lot of guys with farms are connected to farms that are growing marijuana. They're also growing hemp farms as well. And they're starting to tap into that because there's a pretty large future in it. And I think, before we know it, CBD is going to be looked at like aspirin. I think you'll be able to find CBD in every home in America like an aspirin. Right, because it's more healthy than that, And I told somebody that the other day, and they're like, "What? No, how can that be?"
Yeah, right? pills aren't good for you. Yeah,
exactly. And I said, "Well, how is it that aspirin is in every home?" They thought it was crazy when they said that it would be a computer in every home, and so I think, the more we find out about CBD and realize how much our body needs it and how it puts our body in sync. It's only a matter of time.
Yeah, I think you're right, Marcus. It's definitely interesting. So why do you think CBD is so expensive right now, Marcus? Just because it's not that easy to produce?
I think it's not that easy to produce, but then at the same time, you get what you pay for, like in everything. I think that there are some super affordable CBDs that are out there, but then how much CBD is your body actually getting, and so I think it's expensive because it depends on the process. To be honest, I think there's the different processes cost different amount of money, and so however much it costs to process it and bottle it, and based on the quality, I think you get your price. The bottle that I sell, retails for $109, and there's over 100 drops in there, and 2 drops is a full dose, and so you have about 50 uses or so for $100, $109, and so I think you definitely get your money's worth. You're using it for over a month, and you definitely get your money's worth.
Right. One thing I like talking to all the guys about, Marcus, that have come on podcasts, at least most of them, want to ask you about what are your thoughts on college athletes getting paid? I mean, I'm in full support of college athletes getting paid. I feel like you guys put so many hours into the craft week in, week out. To me, I think it's kind of ridiculous how much the disparity between the amount that the coaches make and the fact that the players, sure, you get a free scholarship. I get that. It's an education, but a lot of times the education ain't going to do much for you.
No, it's definitely, it's definitely disparity between the difference in what everybody's making. I think for sure college athletes should get paid. I don't know what that looks like, but there definitely should be a way that they get paid. And also, there should be a way that they can use their likeness and find out more ways to get paid because, in the society, in the day and age we're in right now, all these guys aren't going to the NFL. And the way that a college degree is looked at now is almost like a diploma. Everybody has one.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't super separate you from anybody else by having a degree. I have 2 degrees, and when I was done coaching, I came back to Sacramento and couldn't get a job.
Right.
And it was really tough for me. I'm like, man, I have 2 degrees. And I felt like it was either one job felt like I was too qualified or another job felt as though I didn't have enough experience, and I'm like, well, I've been playing football. So that's where my experience lies. But at the same time, man, if I could have made some money while I was at Fresno State, I would have been off to a better start. Even if I wasn't making a lot, I mean, if I leave college with $5,000 in the bank or $10,000 in the bank or $30,000 in the bank, I'm definitely starting my life off, on a better foot. And, and that would be money that I earned, being on a video game and being on a video game and however many tickets being sold or, there's different ways. I mean, I remember we made a rap song when I was in college.
I saw that. I saw that on YouTube. I was going to ask you about that.
Me and a teammate of mine, and we wanted to release it as a single, and compliance said that we couldn't do that because people would buy it just because we played football for Fresno State. And I'm like, so what? But that's part of the rules. It's either like all or nothing. And so I thought I'm like, man, this is something that we created. And I'm like, well, what if I bake the apple pie? Can I walk around and sell those? And they're like, well, you couldn't put your jersey on to sell them. I'm like, what? I'm like, I just felt like it was just the weirdest thing. It's like, why as an athlete, we can't make any money doing anything? Yeah,
that's so stupid, dude. They gotta, thank goodness they're finally changing some of those rules. Jesus.
Well, they have to, and I think, I understand the thought process. They won't be able to control it once they open up those floodgates.
Oh, yeah.
They really won't be able to control it.
It's going to be like the Wild West, Marcus.
No, it's definitely going to be like the Wild West, but at the same time, that's life.
Yeah, I agree. It's capitalism,
It's capitalism. Yeah. It's like, how can I make the most while I, now you have certain guys that might stack 100,000 while they're in school. And, what do you think that's going to do for the trajectory of their family? You know what I mean? Being able to leave college, especially if you get hurt or anything happens and, you get hurt your first year in the NFL, that's, a lot more eyes are on these guys when they're in school, and so I think now more than ever, you yourself, you're a brand, and, why not being able to capitalize off your own brand?
Yeah, I agree, man. I mean, I just think of guys would be able to have just stacks of photos and signing their autographs on photos. The trading card companies and all that, man. I mean, that's really going to open up a ton, the amount of extra spending money that those guys will be able to generate, with, just signing a couple photos, maybe it's $30, or $40 for every photo you sell off eBay or something with some trading card company.
Autographs or something. If I sell these autographs for $10 a piece, and that doesn't mean I don't give autographs to kids at the game still, but if these adults and different fans and boosters want to buy something that also is helping me feed myself and helping me, take care of the things that I need, I don't see any problem in that.
Yeah, I agree, dude. I think the NCAA's rules are archaic, and I think that anyone who's, a reasonable and logical person understands that. I mean, the NCAA just, the way they move on cases and stuff, they move at a glacial pace, it's just insane. And the way they banned Reggie Bush, he had to disassociate from USC for 10 years. That was so stupid. It's Wally Lundy said, he's like, Reggie knew what the rules were. You broke the rules. You got to pay the price. But same time, disassociating Reggie Bush for 10 years, it's so stupid, man. Everyone knows that Reggie Bush went to USC. You know what I mean? And then not only that, making Reggie voluntarily give up his Heisman. God, that was some bullshit, dude.
Definitely was some bull. And, I just, we all know what's going on, and I think it's a lot rougher in the basketball world. I think those guys are getting money left and right, and it's easier to hide because of these big deals, and there's so many guys that are connected to these players through the AAU teams and whatnot.
Yeah, that's a good point, Marcus. What do you think about with the endorsements and how they're going to be able to control the agent selection process?
Say that again.
What do you think about the endorsements and how hard it's going to be to control the agent selection process for some of these prospects? Because think about it. They're going to have agents starting to recruit them when they're in middle school or if you're like a top 5 guy, like Amani Bates, I'm sure people have been, messaging that kid on social media for like several years,
Yeah. I think it definitely, like you said, I think the same way with CBD is going to be the Wild Wild West. My old agent, he reached out to me. I think it's gonna end up being similar to AAU in basketball, because guys like myself who train kids throughout the city, and I'm connected to these different athletes and different training programs. Now I got agents calling me and saying, "Hey, do you have any guys? Or keep me in mind if this thing takes off. You know what I mean? I might want to work or partner with you and whoever's in Sacramento that got guys." And so it's already starting, to trickle down. And I think it'll, just like the AAU coaches, now it'll shift to the 7-on-7 coaches and whoever has the most ties with these guys.
Yeah. Who are some of your favorite football players of all time, Marcus, to watch?
Favorite football players of all time, Marcus Allen, for sure. Bo Jackson. I was named after Marcus Allen. And then he was awesome. He was traded to the Chiefs when I was in 5th grade. And so I became a Chiefs fan. Dante Hall, Larry Johnson, Derek Thomas, Derek Johnson.
Don't you have I saw on your Instagram, don't you have a Derek Thomas authentic Pro Bowl jersey?
I definitely do.
Dude, that's a sick jersey.
Do. And then also, Lance Briggs, he's a good friend of mine and a big homie, but he's somebody I watched since I was in 7th grade and really try to model my game after. And it was fortunate that I got a chance to be kind of close to him and watch his whole career and how great he ended up being and be there to witness it as well when I was with the Bears.
Yeah, Lance Briggs, he was ridiculous. I mean, how many years was he all pro for? Several years, right?
I think he had 5 or 6. I think he had 5 or 6 all pro years.
So he's probably going to be in the Hall of Fame. I'd say he's pretty much going to punch his ticket, don't you?
He should. He definitely should. I think what sucked for him, like I was saying earlier about the traditional linebacker, right around the 3-4. I think he had 3 all pros in a row or something like that. I think he might have 3 all pros, but 7 Pro Bowls. But linebackers like DeMarcus Ware started to get all pro first team. And so a lot of the voters, they started looking at sacks for outside linebackers.
Right.
And so if you didn't have a lot of sacks, you weren't really high on the list for outside linebackers, but traditional outside linebackers aren't getting a lot of sacks because they're not rushing the edge like that. You know what I mean? And so I thought they should have did something traditionally, just in the voting, because it just becomes you're playing 2 different positions. So it's hard to compare those type of stats.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It's definitely a good point, Marcus.
Mm-hmm.
What about video games? Like, talk to me about you guys when you're in Fresno. Did you guys love playing NCAA football?
Oh yeah, we definitely played. I actually still have I don't have my same copy, but I bought a copy in hopes that the new PS5 plays old games. But I have a copy of NCAA 05, which I was on, and I was an impact player that year. So I definitely made sure I got one of those copies to hold on to. But I was a big video game guy, but it's been tough with a fiance and kids now. I have to play my games when everybody go to sleep, and even still, my fiance is complaining about it. So I try to, I get in a little Call of Duty when I can, and I'm more of an NBA 2K guy. I can't play Madden. I feel like I deal with too much football in a day-to-day.
Right.
That video games is kind of my way to get away.
That makes sense.
If I'm playing Madden, the games are so real now.
Right.
that, I'm frustrated and I know so much about football. I'll be frustrated that I can't do what I know how to do, and I don't have time. I'm like, I don't have time to put the effort in to learn all the audibles and everything I need to do. So I enjoy playing basketball in that sense of it was something that I never did at a high level. And so it kind of takes me away.
Did you end up getting paid from the NCAA, the video game lawsuit? Because I talked to some other players and they got their checks.
Yeah. No, I never got paid through the NCAA lawsuit because I didn't want to join in, because if for ever any reason that I wanted to get money from the NCAA on my own, I wouldn't have been able to.
Oh, so by getting the NCAA video game money, you've surrendered any sort of other type of litigation?
Forever.
Wow, I had no idea about that. Man, that's a caveat that I bet a lot of guys that got that money had no idea about. Wow.
I bet they didn't.
Jesus, Marcus, that is fascinating information. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I had no idea about that. Did you know about the lawsuit? There's a guy by the name of Jeffrey Kessler. I don't know if you heard of him, but Jeffrey Kessler is a guy that makes the NFL and the NCAA cringe because he's essentially the biggest. You want to talk about the Michael Jordan of sports law? Jeffrey Kessler is it, dude. Jeffrey Kessler took a case, and I don't know if this case is still active or not, but he took a case to the NCAA saying that a scholarship is a form of price fixing. And by that, since like the value of a scholarship is like a fixed number, he said it was a form of price fixing, and that's what made it illegal. So that case was fascinating to me, and I'm not sure how that case ended up, but I knew once I saw Jeffrey Kessler's name, I knew that the NCAA was going to be terrified.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't know much about Kessler, but the NCAA should be terrified. I think more and more people are finding out now just how corrupt an organization is. How can you make billions and fight so hard to not give the people who are making you billions any kind of power or any kind of decision making? And I think people are finally seeing the NCAA for what it really is.
Yeah, I agree completely, Marcus. Like, to me, it's something that I get to talk to a lot of guys that come on the podcast about, and just happy to be able to talk to all the players about it, because I think it's pretty unanimous across the board that, the players definitely deserve to get some sort of compensation for all the work that you guys put into the game. You know what I mean? And not only that, I mean, especially the fact that, like, you think of all the different ways that athletes can make money. You know what I mean? I think that's with the endorsements, I think that's all going to change. I think they're going to need to regulate it properly. That's going to get complicated, but it's definitely a good step for the NCAA, even though, I mean, God, the NCAA moves so slow, man. It's like it took them this long to do that. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, definitely crazy.
What are your thoughts on the Redskins changing their name, Marcus?
You know what? I think it's about time. I think, people are really putting this on Black Lives Matter and everything that's going on right now. And I think it's becoming political for some reason, but people have been saying they've had a problem with that name for 20 plus years, for as long as I can remember. My cousin had played on the Redskins, and I know there's a lot of history behind it. Even from the Redskins being the last team to integrate Black players. I think there's a lot more history behind it. And I think the fact that it's an actual racial slur for a group of people, I think it should have been done. And I'm glad that they're finally making a change. And, I don't see the reason for holding on to a team name. These are, they're made up names anyway. Like there's no, somebody at some point decided, hey, let's name this team that. I mean, when you look at the old leagues and how they started, everybody had different names, and I don't think when they changed their names, there were, and I could be wrong. I don't think when these teams changed their names, there were big uproars, you look at the expansion teams and different teams of that nature. I just think I feel like the name should have been done. I'm glad they're doing it, and I just hope some real change kind of comes about from it. It sucks that just from a team changing their name, that they have to deal with so much backlash, and now it's dividing people, and it's becoming political when it's like, yeah, this has nothing to do with politics. It's like what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah, it's tough, man. I mean, it's tough because you change the name of the Washington Bullets, and you get in some really tough spots. When you start changing, saying, I don't know. Once you start to sterilize language, it can be really tough. You get yourself into some really weird situations. But
I mean, it can definitely be a slippery slope. I'll tell you that. It definitely can be a slippery slope. But I believe that's life. At 100 years ago, the things that were normal aren't normal anymore. And I think everything evolves and everything changes. How they used to talk to people when the Redskins name was made. I'm not sure what year that is. Do you know what year the Redskins were created?
Not sure, Marcus. I'd have to look that up. I no idea.
So the year the Redskins were created, if you just 1932, in Boston, Massachusetts, right? So in 1932, if you think about the state of America and what was going on, especially in the 1800s, you have all the Indians that had been slaughtered and different things of that nature. It's kind of like, things need to progress. We're talking about 100 years ago, so of course it wasn't a problem 100 years ago. But now looking back at it, I'm sure there's a lot of things in the language that was going on in 1932 that wouldn't be cool to this day.
Right. Trying to think of what else, Marcus. What about who are some of your teammates that you keep in touch with the most from Fresno State?
So my teammates I keep in touch with the most, Clifton Smith is one of my best friends from Fresno.
You mentioning Clifton Smith, actually, I wanted to talk about your ACL repair, because that's a fascinating surgery that, I've actually looked up videos of that on YouTube. That might gotta sound weird, but
I don't want to see those.
What they do, Dr. James Andrews' fellows, they take a piece of the hamstring. It's like a piece of bacon, and then they use that in the repair process. I was pretty fascinated by that. Were you pretty happy with your, when you tore your ACL? Were you pretty happy with the surgery and everything, and all the recovery and everything?
Yeah, I was happy with the surgery. I thought the surgery looked good. I mean, I woke up in the worst pain I've ever been in. Felt like they were still cutting on my knee. But the only bad part about my recovery, I tore my ACL and my meniscus, and I retore my meniscus 2 weeks before camp the following year. And so that's what really delayed my whole process and kept me injured going into that season.
Yeah, tore meniscus.
Tore meniscus.
I
actually tore my meniscus. I actually tore my meniscus at the club.
What do you mean at the club?
At a dance club. So like I tore my ACL, my meniscus against USC. And then during my recovery process, during the summer where earlier that day, I had ran stairs for the first time. And so my knee was getting stronger. I was training. I was already 6 months in on my rehab, plus actually maybe 8 months. And so my ACL was good. It was my meniscus that was still weak. And I went out that night after I did stairs, and the muscles around were just not ready. They were not prepared to do any kind of dancing. And I twisted the wrong way and felt the pop. I was just instantly, shook up and found out I retore my meniscus. And so that kind of blew my whole junior season.
Jeez, dude. Because, ACL recoveries, like I remember, God, what did Adrian Peterson, he recovered from his in like 6 to 8 months. It was something like superhuman. Like Adrian Peterson is like,
I think normally it takes 6 to 8 months. He came back in like 5.
Yeah, he definitely had like a shortened recovery. Like after that, I mean, we already knew Adrian Peterson was Superman. After that, I was like, God, this guy is just like made of some like crazy DNA, man. Like he is something out of Mars. Like, God.
Yeah, he is.
And, how about Frank Gore? Like he tearing his ACL. He tore both ACLs and he's still in the NFL. Like, God, it's like one guy said, like, Frank Gore is like a vampire. That guy is just going to last forever.
Yeah, forever. He's definitely still playing, right?
Yeah, he's still playing,
at
man.
a high level too, man. It's crazy. More power to him,
I've always liked Frank Gore, man. He's a class act. He goes out and, he loves to work. He loves the game and he loves playing football, Like he never causes any problems. I mean, that guy, he's just what an incredible athlete and a great ambassador for the game. I think that his yardage totals are a bit misleading because he's played so long, but make no mistake about it. I mean, Frank Gore will be a worthy Hall of Fame member once he gets inducted. And I think it's pretty much a lock at this point that Frank Gore is going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, for sure. He needs that.
All right, Marcus. Well, you got anything else you want to say? Final words, final thoughts?
No, man. Hey, I appreciate you having me on. I don't think I told you this, but I know you see my autograph that I sent, but my middle name is actually Wade.
That's hilarious, man.
I put the W on there.
That's funny. Your middle name is Wade. That's hilarious, man.
It is funny, but I appreciate you having me on. I enjoyed talking, and look forward to talking to you soon. And then also thank you for the artwork.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man. Jeremy, our graphics guy, does great work, dude. He does some stuff for like the NFL Instagram people, man. I've seen him do stuff for like he was doing stuff for like the Chargers on like Hard Knocks and stuff. I was like, man, like Jeremy, he's doing big things, man. I think he's like I think he's going to be a junior this year at Cornell. He is something exceptional, man. But
right.
Yeah, Marcus, I really appreciate the time, man. Thanks a lot. Love talking ball. And I was, I saw you on Cole Brennan's highlight tape, man. I was like, I got to get this guy. So luckily you answered,
good,
man.
Appreciate you having me.
Yeah. Take care, Marcus. See ya.
All right. You too.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Listening to the Flow Theory Podcast. You can listen to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and TuneIn.